Eden Zero Chapter 209 is finally out, and I have to say we got two big reveals in this chapter. One that honestly I am very, very happy with, and I have to confidently say and pat myself on the back, I was right about the whole Ziggy personality thing, but I'm not the only one who kind of pointed that out. But it was addressed in this chapter, and I must say, I am so very happy about it. Overall, this chapter is more or less damage control and aftermath for the previous chapter with the Battle of Dead End Crow, and then we cut back to the second half of the chapter, more or less the ending, having to deal with Ziggy and Pino with her way to take down Ziggy. Which is honestly something that was both kind of obvious, and I'm honestly kind of surprised I did not think of this sooner, because it makes sense and it's very simple. I'll get into that later. But with that out of the way, let's hit that intro and get right into the chapter. Chapter 209 of Eden Zero, titled Renewed Time. We start off with the aftermath of Dead End Crow getting basically blown up by the main cannon of the Eden Zero, and everyone is celebrating that they managed to defeat him. Hermit is telling the crew to calm down as the Union Army is still around, so they're not out of the woods yet. But Eraser just goes on and tells her, hey, don't worry about it, we're not here to fight you guys today. Which I'm very happy with, because it would be very, very weird and kind of bad if they just, they teamed up to take down Dead End Crow. Now they're just gonna like, hey, yeah, we're gonna kill you guys now, sorry, but we appreciate the help. It just doesn't fit the characters that we've been introduced to, especially Eraser, because he's just very chill for the most part, and he understands like who the Eden Zero crew actually are. But we also get the confirmation that Crow/Cure is dead by Feather as she uses her ether gear. Holy asked them if they knew who Cure really was, but they say that they didn't. And Feather also goes on to say how Cure's been able to keep this whole ruse going for so long. The Irrational and Stace Interstellar, they never met in person, like never. They've only ever talked to each other through online calls, and during joint operations, their only interactions were through comm channels, and they were on different individual ships. Feather herself, she never had any real interest in any of her allies' locations up until this very moment. And it was this very operation that got Feather curious and realized that Cure's ship was completely unmanned. And she then figured out that Cure and Crow's locations were exactly the same. And apparently it always has been for the last 13 years. So basically ever since Crow's creation, which does kind of make sense. Meaning that Cure was in the exact same spot more or less for 13 years. He never met any of the other Interstellar, and he's more or less just acted as Dead End Crow while secretly being Cure and kind of fooling the allies that he essentially created and gathered to beat Dead End Crow and all the others. We then get Clean and Laguna's reaction to this, for Laguna just being like, wait, so he was Crow but also in the government army at the exact same time. Clean brings up the fact that that just makes no sense, and Jin is wondering why they haven't noticed for over a decade that Cure was essentially one of their enemies, since they had someone with the same ether gear or similar ether gear as Noah, the guy that could literally see through different dimensions. Eraser brings up the fact that Cure put up a lot of effort to make sure no one would find him, especially Feather. But it was only because of Holy basically wreaking havoc inside of Crow's body that the camouflage shield keeping his location a secret was kind of, well, revealed. So Holy basically was the one that saved the day and got the Interstellar to actually intervene in their fight against Crow. But Holy just says that it was primarily because of her negligence anyway. It was her fault for not having any interest in her friends. But Hermit just brings up the very obvious question. Taking no interest, then can you really call them your friends? Which, I like that Hermit is the one that says this. Friends and connections mean a lot to her out of everyone, especially outside of like Shiki and Rebecca. So it's nice that she's bringing this up to Feather. But then Eraser brings the conversation to Noella, stating that they can just talk about Cure later and discuss everything when this fight is over. Right now they have to deal with Noella and the swarm of dragons running amok in that whole area. Hermit says that it's going to take some time for the ship to actually get moving again, but they are going to help them since they kind of owe them. We then cut to presumably maybe a minute or two later as Homer manages to arrive in the hangar as Sister calls for Hermit and everyone to come down and see what she brought. as we then see all of the mothers that she brought back from Ziggy's personal collection. Connor being Connor, I don't like his line, but it is funny just seeing Hermit kind of punching him in the face for just, you know, being a pervert. Homer says she's going to explain everything later, but Hermit says that she was listening in on the comms the entire time. She knows everything about the mothers and Ziggy and the whole reveals. Homer goes off to go meet up with Rebecca and Wise, but then we get Clean and Jin's reaction to seeing their mother's dead body. They're wondering what the heck she's doing there and what it means. Laguna talks too, stating that she was dead. How? And Hermit explains that Ziggy's been collecting mothers throughout the cosmos, and most of them have been dead. But Connor has the most shocked expression as he looks at Knox, saying that her name is Rachel, asking what she's doing here. Hermit reveals to everyone that this is Rebecca's mother, and she's the only one out of all of them that was kept alive. Connor's asking what she's doing here, as Laguna's asking if he knows her. Sister comes stomping in, saying that she's gonna have to take Knox to the infirmary. Connor's trying to stop Sister for a second as he's trying to say something, but Sister just says, "I know, she's your wife." As everyone is very shocked at this, and just being like, wait, that means, and Hermit just states that Connor is Rebecca's father. So, one big reveal this chapter, Connor is Rebecca's father. Have any of you considered this a possibility? I did not consider it a possibility, but it does kind of make sense to a certain degree as to why it keeps getting introduced in every single timeline. So it does kind of make somewhat sense. I don't know, it's a weird thing to consider, but considering we got Rebecca's mother in this arc, it's honestly something that's I didn't think about, of getting her father introduced in this arc as well. Though it does kind of make that earlier scene in, I believe it was this arc, where he was literally just bathing in the bath, looking at all the women naked, which one of them is revealed to be his daughter. That is not a that is just not a good scene. I did not like that scene, and now it's even worse for me. Then Clean actually wonders why Hermit didn't tell Rebecca any of this, and even Connor's like, wait, you knew? As Hermit just says, they were just waiting for Connor to tell Rebecca himself. Connor's trying to explain himself, but Sister just says, save it for after the battle. Right now, I'm gonna go bring her back to life. You guys get the ship up and running. As the scene ends, Connor speaks his wife's name, Rachel, and then Rebecca, as we cut back to Rebecca in the underground room with Ziggy's personal collection. It sounds very weird saying Ziggy's personal collection, as it's literally just a bunch of dead bodies. This series gets very dark and morbid at times, and sometimes I just don't register it until I just say things out loud. But yeah, Rebecca's just wondering, just saying that everyone here is a mother, and if they go through with this plan, you know, she's kind of, you know, second guessing the whole idea of erasing this whole planet now that there are a bunch of mothers here that were just kidnapped from their families, basically from their graves, more or less. But why just brings up the fact that they already talked about this right before Shiki left. Happy says how sad it is that they're all dead. It's sad to say it, but they're all dead, and Ziggy's using them for some evil purpose, which is to kill Mother, to destroy Mother. And it's better to give them back to the stars than let them be used like this. And I agree with Rebecca, that's a nice way of putting having the giant time dragon beast devouring the time to the point of it not existing to being returned to the stars. But Rebecca does ask the question, why is only her mother, as why just finishes the sentence, when all the others are dead, why is she the one that's alive? Why it just brings up the fact that him and Homer, they spend time with their mothers, and she doesn't know about the rest of them, but they spend time with their mothers, even if it was only for a little bit. But Rebecca, she didn't. Wise just says a very cool line. As I feel like Wise gets a lot of the cooler lines and the more like emotionally healthy lines when he gives other characters advice and tries to help them back up. That is, maybe the universe is telling Rebecca to make up the time that they lost. Which is honestly a really nice line, and it's coming from Wise, someone who hadn't spent his whole life with his mother, only being with his mother till the moment of her death, seeing her die, and now Rebecca has a chance to actually see her mother for the first time and talk to her and make up for lost time. I feel like Wise and even Homura would be the best people to really tell Rebecca to just go for it and just give them like their own 2 cents in it. And yeah, it makes sense for Wise to give this line to Rebecca. But we then cut back to Pino getting in the way of Ziggy and Shiki's fight. Shiki is trying to get up, trying to tell Pino to get away, but he falls down to the ground on the fact that he is very weakened, beaten up, and his leg is broken. Pino reveals the fact that Ziggy was hacking into her in order to gather information on their whereabouts. But she also reveals that Ziggy left a data trail behind, as Ziggy himself states, "No. Me? I would never be so careless." And Pino just says, "You left me the key to defeating you." And Shiki's like, "No way, Ziggy would never just hand us his weakness over like that." But then he remembers what he said to Wizard back in their fight. Do you think maybe Ziggy knew he was going to go crazy? Which is honestly a really awesome thing to think about, and I've thought about this for a while with the inconsistencies of the Ziggy memories and all the information we know, and even the time travel reveal. Still, things don't add up to what Ziggy's doing right now. I even made a video on why Ziggy isn't the end-all be-all villain of the series, so go check that out in the title card above if you guys want to see my thoughts on Ziggy not being the final villain. Obviously, it was made before the whole future Shiki reveal, but a lot of it still holds up in the fact that things don't make sense with Ziggy, and that there's gotta be something else in play, and the fact that perhaps Ziggy's original personality was still in there. And this chapter more or less kind of confirms it, as Pino begins to activate her EMP. Now, Ziggy had countermeasures against the EMP, but Pino states that that she set an electrical pulse to a certain algorithm at a specific frequency so it would affect Ziggy. That is the key to beating him. The key that Ziggy gave her. As she then reveals that she managed to obtain overdrive. Even Ziggy is shocked by this, and this is honestly a really awesome scene. Pino gets overdrive. Now, Hermit got overdrive, and in this arc, and now we got Pino using overdrive. And apparently this was her main core function to begin with, but her memories kind of had it sealed away, so she wasn't able to fully activate it. Meaning that Ziggy in the past, very smart guy, basically being able to give Pino overdrive. This is the key to stopping him. And Pino says, exactly, Master Ziggy still has his old personality inside him. That personality unlocked my memories. So, earlier in this arc, when Ziggy was kind of flashing back to his time with young Shiki, yeah, it makes a hell of a lot of sense. And I'm just so glad because Ziggy's original personality is still in there and breaking through in bits and pieces with the talk with Noel at the beginning of the arc, and then his fight against Elsie. That was actually Ziggy's main personality managing to break through, if only for a little bit. And now this EMP is managing to do so. Ziggy gets hit with it brute force, full on, as Pino just says, "You used to be my kind Master Ziggy. Please go back to who you were." The EMP stops, and Shiki and Pino stare at Ziggy, as Ziggy is now seemingly back in his original form, back when he awakened on Granville, and the form that he had at the beginning of the story. As the first words that come out of his mouth is telling Pino she did a good job. It worked. But Ziggy states, "This is our only chance. Kill me," as the chapter ends. Really awesome chapter. I don't know what Shiki's going to do with this information, but there is going to be a lot of explanations we're going to have to get. But this was honestly a really nice reveal, and I'm kicking myself now realizing that Pino's EMP was the main thing to take down Ziggy in the first place. This specific frequency got rid of the personality that is currently taking over, meaning the real Ziggy, who managed to keep his main personality dormant this entire time, is in full control. But for how long, we don't know. Which means Ziggy is going to be taken over by a dark personality at any moment. And now Shiki, this is the first time he's talking to his grandfather in over 15 years. This is a big shock to him. And now, his grandfather is telling him to kill him. Now, Shiki was all set to take down Ziggy to begin with, but now that this is his actual grandfather that he's speaking to, the real Ziggy, he's probably going to hesitate. And we can tell that from the panel of him being fully in like shock of the real Ziggy being around. So this is honestly going to be an interesting thing that we're going to see next week, and I'm all here for it. I'm so glad that I was right that Ziggy seems to not be the final villain of the story, and that there was something else going on. So I am very excited to see what happens next. This is another good chapter, and I can't wait to see more with the whole thing of like Connor being Rebecca's father. I can't wait to see when Nox is revealed. I mean, when Nox is like revived and awake, and her interaction with Rebecca at the end of this arc. we're gonna get like a bunch of stuff at some point involving Rebecca's powers, because I feel like with the reveal of someone else with time magic, Rebecca's gonna learn more stuff about Cat Leaper and everything, and we'll learn the reason for why she was abandoned in the first place. We might also get a bit of an explanation from maybe Pino, if this was part of her memories, on why Ziggy was going to go evil and why Ziggy created Pino in the first place to stop him. But I'm more concerned on Shiki's personal struggle to have to kill his grandfather. Because he was all in, like I said, he was all in for fighting Ziggy and taking him down, because he was going to destroy the cosmos. But now, it was in the future version of himself, and now the grandfather that he once knew is alive and standing before him in the first time in like 15 years. So there's going to be a whole flood of emotions similar to when Ziggy was revived to be evil back in like chapter 99. So I'm curious to see how Shiki's going to react to this, if he's actually going to be able to kill Ziggy, or if something else is going to occur. Because this seemed to be the one chance to free Ziggy from this evil controlling him. But with all that said and done, that's all my thoughts on the chapter. Another really solid chapter for Eden Zero, and some stuff I did not think was going to happen, even though some stuff was kind of obvious. Primarily like the Pino reveal, and let's just say the Pino overdrive design, really cool and also very cute for Pino herself. But what did you guys think? Leave your thoughts down below in the comments about the idea of Ziggy being controlled by this other personality, and that everything was set up with Pino to be the person to take him down. Do you think Shiki's gonna have the mental and the actual emotional strength to take down his grandfather now that the evil is seemingly gone for a few minutes? What do you think is going to happen when Rebecca realizes that Connor's her father, and when she actually gets to talk to her mother? And also, what the hell is going on with Elsie and Justice against Agnoella, as we have not seen them for chapters upon chapters ever since the Ziggy reveal? But yeah, that's all I gotta say for the review. Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell for updates on future videos. It really does help. And with all that said and done, I hope you all have an awesome day.